Hello, everybody. How honored we are today to have with us someone who really knows what in the world is going on, been there, done that, and keeps going forward with it. A real woman of dignity, grace, honor, and puts her money where her mind is. Lynette Zhang. Ms. Zhang, thank you so much for being here. And I'm up in Kingston, New York, and Lynette has a history over here. Tell us a little bit about that, Lynette.
Well, I grew up in Kingston. That's where I started my banking career, right around the corner from your building. And I used to come and get melon and cottage cheese for lunch. But my father was a developer there. So, yeah, I spent definitely 17 years there till I went away to college. Yeah. And then I left. But lots of nostalgia when I go back. So that was fun. I so appreciate you calling me back there, because you're probably about the only person that could get me back there. but it's fun. It really is a lot of fun. Though I'm glad I'm out in Arizona now, to be honest with you.
Well, Kingston's changed a lot. Now when the COVID war began, according to Bloomberg, out of 181 cities, more people moved up here in the first several months than percentage wise than anywhere else in the country. So now it's filled with a lot of young New York. They call themselves New Yorkers. Of course, they're not, but they were living in New York and they're coming up here. And so I see a lot of young people with babies and carriages now. So it's a whole different place. And so I want to thank you for being on. And, when it comes to the economy and what in the world is going on, you have a great view of it and a lot of insight. So, the Federal Reserve is going to be raising interest rates, as the word comes out, some 25 basis points. And then the European Union, they're going to raise interest rates. The European Central Bank, they're expected to raise them either 25 or 50 basis points.
Right.
So what do you see going on and the implications of what they'll be doing?
Well, I think everybody can see what's happening with the regional banks with, 15 years of zero interest rate policy. So all these banks piled into all of these treasuries and put out mortgages, put out loans. And, they would be valued if it was zero. Can I have a pen, please? Thank you. Okay. So interest rates, current market value, right? So they come out at zero interest rates, and then they go in globally. Central banks are in a major tightening where they're raising rates pretty aggressively. And what happens to the market value of those assets? They've plummeted. So there are all of these losses that are on their books. And, and what we're seeing is a complete breakdown of the global financial system, but we're only seeing the little bitty tip. And look at what's happening in the treasury bond market. Unthinkable things on the short term, with traders betting on default coming up as early as June. And so they got us into this problem with all their wonderful money printing, because that's all they really have, right? And now we're seeing the foundations of the system that they created absolutely crumble.
Well, you mentioned zero interest rates, and let's go back, Lynette, to the COVID war when it began in January 2020. Out of China, in celebration of their Chinese Lunar New Year, the year of the rat. The markets and the economy should have crashed, but didn't happen because you mentioned the zero interest rate policy in the United States. And of course, over in Europe, for 8 years, negative interest rate policy.
Right.
And then, hey, stay home. Don't worry about it. Close down your business. Here's some money. Countless trillions. The number goes between 6 and 8 trillion that the government dumped in this phony money.
Mm-hmm.
They created a bubble, the likes of which we've never seen before. You saw the housing market, housing prices went up, 40% in 3 years?
Oh, yeah. Maybe even more than that in some places, more than that even.
But we're not going to put that number into the inflation number. We're going to cook it. We're going to, so we're going to rig the numbers so the inflation numbers come a lot lower. And let's not forget, for over 2 years, the Federal Reserve and the ECB was saying, no, there's no inflation. It's only temporary. It's only transitory. So now what they're saying is the reason, and I'm not making this up, everybody could look it up. Don't listen to what Lynette said or what I say. The reason for higher interest rates and the reason they're raising, the reason for inflation and the reason they keep raising interest rates are because wages are going up. And we have to slow down the economy and put more of the plantation workers of Slavelandia that are making not enough money to survive now out of work.
Yeah. Well, did you see what the Bank of England, one of their economists came out and said, get used to it. You're poorer. Stop asking for wage hikes. He was probably more honest than so many of the others. But sure, inflation has nothing to do with all the money printing. And look at the corporate profits. And when you listen to these guys coming out on the earnings call, like Procter and Gamble came out and said, yes, I mean, how much have you heard? The consumer is really strong in here. We raised our prices 10%.
Yep.
The corporations completely took advantage of the inflation and pushed that higher. And let's not talk about CEO pay and all of those compensations that they're getting, what, 1,000, 3,000 times what the average worker is making. So, but that none of that is inflationary. It's just when the boots on the ground person wants to ask for more money because their cost of living has exploded. And you've got people earning up to $250,000 a year, living paycheck to paycheck. And let's not even talk about the retirement crisis.
You know, you mentioned also that, you know, we're in a complete global meltdown, or words to that effect. And when we're talking about the banking sector, when the COVID war began, you know, we're trend forecasters. So we give you trends analysis and trend forecasts of the current events forming future trends. And we said, again, let's go back to when it happened in 2020, January. In February, the virus hit America. Where did it hit? Kirkland, Washington. Yeah, it hit a bunch of old age homes up there, and it killed people that were dying anyway. And what happened? That guy Dorsey, that freaky guy that used to own Twitter, that looks like something out of a Mad magazine. Yep, there he is. I mean, look at this guy. This guy is the first to cancel his trip going to South Africa and telling people to stay home, all his workers. And then that Zuckerberg and that Peach Eye, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, all the big tech companies, go home. Go home, you'll be safe. Go home, don't come to work. And their stocks skyrocketed as everybody started shopping online, living online, can't go out to restaurants, got to order food, pick it up. They thrived. They did a great job in San Francisco. Oh. The office vacancy rate, not the occupancy rate, the vacancy rate is around 30%. You walk down the street, you want to see homeless? Hey, you need any fentanyl? Get you all you want. There's an office building bust that has been created by these lockdowns and people working from home. According to Castle Systems, that's with a K, the office occupancy rate of the 10 largest cities in America is at 49.6%. So all the businesses that depended on commuters, all these big office buildings that are now vacant or hardly occupied, and they got to pay their loans. Oh, they have these floating loans, they call them of some kind. They're very short-term loans that float. Oh, and interest rates have gone up, and now they have to pay more on them. So what do you see happening with this?
Well, I see that this is a huge shoe to drop. Nordstrom just announced that they're leaving their 300,000 square foot key mall. So in San Francisco, so it's going to get worse. But how do you think that's going to impact the regional banks? Because it's a lot of those regional banks that have put that money into that commercial real estate. And, the mom and pop, I'm sorry to say, those that have managed by some miracle to survive Amazon coming out unfairly. I mean, it's always, this game is so rigged. It's absolutely disgusting. But commercial real estate is definitely a big key to fall. And again, it's on a global basis.
Yep.
And we need this huge crisis to cover up the garbage that the central banks are doing and attempting to convert us into a CBDC so that they can control every move that we make. That's why when you're talking about gold and silver, physical in your possession, you've got to have it outside of the system. And that's not going so well, which is really interesting to me that people are not adopting the CBDCs as easily as the central bankers want to. But I think, commercial real estate is definitely a shoe that is dropping and has been dropping. And it's quite interesting to see what community banks will actually survive, or will it all just become the great big JP Morgan owns